If you're the go-to parent, the first in line parent, what you really might be is the default parent. Default parents are the first and sometimes only adult your kid will go to when they need help, making it tricky, right, for both mom and dad. One needs help and the other doesn't feel like they can help. Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson is going to help us navigate that today. Good to have you, friend. All right, so explain this idea. If we were to define the default parent, I love to see it through your lens.
Yeah, the default parent is the one that's primarily responsible for all things kid raising, right? Any responsibilities with kids, all household responsibilities. This is the parent who's most likely to get up every night if someone needs something, who's filling out all the forms for school, who in their brain is keeping track of all the gymnastic and all the piano, who really is navigating everything parenting and everything household most often.
I am going to assume the brunt of the emails when I stereotypically say this is often mom.
It is often moms, right? And so if we talk about kind of who's at risk to be the default parent, we're going to very first go to women because women are most likely to be the default parent. They are. Does that mean every time? No, but most likely that's the case. There are some other things that put us at risk, though, to be this default parent. If you were raised in a home where this was modeled for you, those very hard and fast traditional roles where you were raised and a mom did every single thing, and I'm being very stereotypical here, but then you have, maybe a dad who comes home from work and is often found, watching football, not contributing to parenting, not helping a lot around the house. If you were raised in a home like that, there's a really good chance that you're going to find yourself at risk to be that default parent. If you struggle and have a lot of anxiety, if you're not doing parenting things, especially as a woman, or caring for your home, like if you were to go to work or if you were to join some friends for a walk around the neighborhood, when you step away from those responsibilities, if you feel a lot of anxiety, then you're at risk for that default parenting space. Even if you struggle with perfectionism, which, remember, being perfect or perfectionism is actually a fear of failure. So if you feel a lot of that and think everything has to be perfect, you also put yourself at risk to be that default parent, even if no one's put you there, to be that default parent.
Is it always negative, though? I find myself thinking that, women by their nature are nurturing oftentimes and caring. And a lot of women really find great joy and satisfaction in rising and thriving in this role. So does it always have to be a negative title, default parent?
I think it doesn't. I don't think it has to be negative all the time. But when we look at those things, if everyone's comfortable in the role, then we're in a really good place, right? I'm comfortable and I love doing those things, so I'm in a good spot. But if I'm not comfortable in that place because it's become overwhelming or maybe it doesn't come as natural, it's the discrepancies that start to make it really frustrating for someone. So if you've chosen it and two people have agreed on those roles and responsibilities and we're good there, well then it wouldn't be negative in that space. It wouldn't be negative in that relationship.
I appreciate you letting me ask, because I find myself thinking, I think I'm the default parent, but I like it. And I'm happy and I'm fulfilled.
And I love that they do come to me most or a lot or come find me.
Control in a very polite way. But to your point, to the person who feels uncomfortable or dissatisfied or unsupported, this conversation has a worthy place. Let's talk about how we can make changes. Heather, you say first we can just recognize that discomfort or that lack of balance.
We do. We want to recognize that. If we haven't recognized it yet, then we don't know to speak up about it. Now, here's the thing. If you're feeling that overwhelm as the default parent, and remember, there's consequences to this. When we find ourselves with these discrepancies, we start to build a lot of resentment, a lot. And that resentment, if we keep it all in, then it starts to show itself in our actions, in our relationships, not just with our kids, but with that other parent. And so these consequences, it impacts our mental health. So we've got to recognize it, and then we're going to speak up about it. People will not read our minds. Right? So if you find yourself in this position, we tend to think, doesn't everyone see that I'm overwhelmed? Doesn't everyone recognize that everything's falling to me? They don't. They don't often recognize that. Kids don't, and spouses don't always recognize. So we've got to open our mouths and be willing to say something. Now, when we start to head down that road to speak up, we tend to get focused on the 50-50 and the tasks. We're going to move away from focusing on, I took out the trash and I did this, so now I need you to do this and you to do this. That's not where you want to start these conversations. We want to start these conversations by talking about what's actually frustrating underneath all of the tasks. And then the tasks will get taken care of on their own. So for example, it isn't about who took out the trash or who's navigating driving kids to and from school. It's actually about not being seen. Right? It's about the discrepancy in workload. It's about not feeling validated or appreciated or safe and recognized.
So even in my head, what I'm hearing you say, if I think it's about evening the list,
It's not.
It's really not.
It's not. It's even much more about the fact that a default parent feels like they have to ask permission in order to ever take care of themselves. Now, we tend to handle these conversations by going to the other parent and saying, hey, I'm doing all these things, and we list them, and you're not doing any of them. And immediately that conversation is going to derail. But imagine if instead you went to that parent, which is often a spouse, and said to them, hey, it's really uncomfortable. I feel like I have to ask permission in order to take care of myself sometimes. You would hope that that spouse, that other parent would go, okay, well, let's talk about that.
Right.
That's very different than here's my list and here's your list and mine's longer than yours is.
Yes.
So we want to step away from focusing on that 50-50. We also want to make sure in those conversations that we're not blaming. Right? Again, as soon as we blame, which remember, blame is just getting rid of emotions that are uncomfortable. As soon as we blame the other person, they're out as far as trying to understand us or stay connected with us when we're trying to have a really hard conversation with them. So instead of pointing fingers, you don't do this, you're not doing this, I am always doing these things. We want to make sure that it's coming from what we're feeling, where we're at, and that we're willing to acknowledge what that overwhelm feels like. Offer them those things opposed to pointing out the things that they're not doing. And that will help so much as you start to have these really important conversations.
I love this next step because you're not saying create a shared to-do list or to create a shared schedule or a shared task load. You're saying create a shared vision.
A shared vision which is going to be focused on, again, a value system. Now, if you're talking to your spouse or to the other parent and you're saying to them, we value contributing or appreciating one another or feeling safe in this relationship parenting together, those values then are going to govern what happens next. So if that's what I care about, if I'm the default parent, I'm actually going to speak up more about things. I'm going to step back from doing everything and feeling guilty about it. That's going to be my work. If you're not the default parent and you believe in that shared vision and those same values, you're going to step up, because stepping up would support the values that the two of you have decided you share when it comes to parenting and household responsibilities. So again, step back from those individual tasks and create that shared vision space that's focused on a value system. Values don't change. And so when we're focused on that, it takes the blame away, it takes that uneven discrepancy, and we fill in the gaps with the tasks because we're focused on those values that we've agreed to, right? We've agreed to.
You want us to delegate realistically.
Yep, which is us, again, speaking up and being realistic about offering up and delegating things that couldn't be done by the other parent as a result of maybe a job or a space or something they don't understand. That's not realistic, right? If you've decided your roles are someone goes to work and someone stays home, we want to be realistic about what it is what weight we are carrying and what it is that we are navigating.
It goes back to that 50-50, which
It does.
will never be.
It does.
And finally, you want us to take matters into our own hands. What do you mean by that?
We don't often look at this. When we feel overwhelmed and feel like the default parent, we tend to just point fingers and go the other direction and expect someone else to make changes for us to feel okay. We don't want to be dependent on everyone else in order for us to be okay, because we should give a nod here. There are many households where a default parent has spoken up over and over again and hasn't been heard. And they've expressed these things and they haven't blamed and they've done to the best of their ability. And they don't necessarily have another parent on the other side that has shared in that vision of values. And so there are times where we need to say, wait, if I'm the default and there is too much here, maybe I need to choose to get rid of some things. Maybe we need to slow some of this down. Maybe I need to delegate. Maybe I teach and help kids jump on board. That we want to take matters into our own hands. Maybe we need to get rid of some things or make some changes so that we're not relying on other people for us to be okay. And sometimes we do need to do that. We need to take that step back.
And I appreciate that sensitive nod too, that a lot of this best practice requires two people demonstrating their best character, but to your point, what we have is what we have, and let's do our best with what's in front of us.
So that if there isn't two people that are simultaneously working, doing this dance together, that you then make sure that you do the things that you need to do in order for you to live your value system. Because even as an individual, my values wouldn't be that I'm overwhelmed and beaten down and resentful. Those wouldn't be values that really anyone is going to say they subscribe to. So if you're running this as an individual, you're going to want to make sure that you do those things to live those values for yourself also.
Well said, sister. Thank you so much. An interesting topic to explore and kind of take in. Heather coaches and counsels families and individuals. You can find her contact information on our website.